Hey guys and girls, welcome back. Okay, a couple things. First off, you'll notice this banner on this table because we're announcing, Tom has told me that he now has a booth at SEMA. So we'll keep you posted because we don't know exactly where we're going to be at SEMA, but I want you guys to come and be able to show up, anyone who can, at SEMA and see some demonstrations that we're going to be doing, because you will be blown away by some of these demonstrations. These demonstrations, part of the strategy is to turn this hyped up industry on its head when it comes to compounds versus polishes, which is a good transition as to the purpose of this video, which is the cornerstone of Tom's product line, which is the Ceram-X, a single product polish. So I want to get him and just pull as much information out of him to deliver to you guys so that you can begin to understand why that's so important and how it applies to your world, and hopefully make your world better, not worse. So with that said, let's pull in a little bit tighter and we're going to go through some Q&A. Here we are, Ceram-X, the cornerstone. It is not a compound. So you may have heard me, and some of this will be repeat because I never know who has the ability to tune in at which point. And often we have to hear things enough times because those bits of information are like dots, okay? And you get enough dots, and then we want to help you connect those dots in a way that becomes significant and relevant in your life, where you stand back and you have this epiphany and you think, oh my gosh, I now get it, because we've placed enough dots and we've helped you connect them. So the Ceram-X, a single product polish. So I've said in numerous videos now that compound kills. So Tom, compound kills. I'm a detailer. I don't even know what to do with that, because to me, I could look at that and say that's just a bunch of hype. This is a company that's just trying to find some new pressure point, some new talking point that's going to get my attention, that I'm going to now drop my hard-earned money on this product, all in the name of compound kills. Like, what does that even mean? So help us understand, when I say compound kills and you need to throw all that garbage in the trash can, like, okay, that's pretty dramatic. What does that mean?
I know that you and I have talked about this before, but I do like to tell this story.
As I love to hear it.
Yeah, and this Corvette, very, very rare, worth a lot of money. And I use this as an example of what we used to do with compound. So back in the day when I was learning to buff, Sue buffer, 600 grit sandpaper was the finest we had, and Super Duty compound. That was the finest, and liquid ebony.
Which is crazy. I guarantee there's not a detailer out there that would even touch a car with 600 grit.
And that would be all we would have, and now we have the same exact kind of paint back then, acrylic lacquer, and we're going to use Super Duty compound, a wool pad, a Sue buffer. What do I think the results are going to be?
Nothing good.
Nothing good. It's going to be bad. And that is the whole idea of compound kills. Yes. That was a nightmare. And me learning a trade and being yelled at by my dad because I didn't help him in his business, but that was all we had. So that whole idea, that's all junk. That is a horrible way. And yet those same products are still available today. Yes. And there's still a lacquer paint job out there. So if you were to ever mix those products on it, it's going to be bad. It's going to be really, really bad.
So let's take this into modern day times, because we addressed this on the last video, which is breaking that mil test metric, which is 5/16 of a mil.
5/10 of 1 mil.
Clarify why is UV coating? How did it come to be? So kind of clarify that.
Okay, so when I first started down this road, there are challenges, so I'm like, well, I don't like the compound method, but what else is there? And you start hearing about all these hurdles that you would have to break in order to get into this side of the business. And I had a lot of experience in the auto body industry, and by the 90s, we had won Pebble Beach already, so we were
now, when you
deep
say
into.
You won Pebble Beach,
we took first
did you
place.
Take second or third?
No,
okay, you just
place.
answered my question.
We took
first place.
Yeah.
And as you told me, unless you're first place, you're just the first loser.
Yes, sir.
at number 2 or 3.
It'd be nice to think that
yeah.
second was good, but second would not be good. We took second, but who cares?
Yeah.
But first place, okay. And not that you get a ton of business from that either, but that's what we were striving to do. There would have to be a lot of things that would have to be in place. This is post-war, so it would be in the exotic car class, and we would take first place in post-war exotic at Pebble Beach. So yeah, that was fun. So that was my experience level when I got into this. And when I heard about the 0.3 of a mil obstacle, I'm like, wow, okay, what does that mean? How do you measure paint? So you need to look at how paint is measured. You have a base coat and then you have a clear coat. And there is a limited amount of clear coat.
So base coat in this moment is actually the color coat.
Is the color.
Because some guys out there will think like base coat could be the primer,
yeah, no.
the coating that keeps it from rusting. Mm-hmm. So when you say base coat, you mean color coat?
Yep, that's the color coat.
And then the clear coat on top of it?
Yep.
Okay.
And so you never get to the color. I mean, if you're buffing and you get the color,
you're screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just made a mess.
Done.
Yeah.
But why is the clear coat important?
What the OE manufacturers explained to me was that at the 0.5 of a mil removal, which the compound business was doing, sanding and compounding, they couldn't break that 0.5 of a mil barrier. But at that level, the clears were delambing off of the cars. So they were concerned. The OE market was concerned that the auto body market was doing all of this damage to the, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the body shop business, and I got to worry about that too.
Right.
But they were trying to find an answer, and we, as far as I know, we were the first one to break that barrier from a 2,000 grit scratch, and you measure the depth that the 2,000 grit scratch takes off, and then removing all of those scratches up to a perfect finish. We were the first company to do that with 0.3 of a mil removal.
Okay.
And as far as I know, we're the only one who promotes that because they still sell compound.
Right.
So they don't get to play there.
Let me clarify something for the audience. What you said there was a lot of stuff, but what I want to be able to do is to take all that stuff and clarify it for guys out there of why this matters to them.
Okay.
So UV coating that literally is the protection, like sunblock. Think of sunscreen that keep, and here in Southern California, that's a big deal. People are watching this all over the world. I think most people understand how sunscreen works. You put it on, and it filters out the damaging UV rays so you don't get sunburn.
Yep.
So the the clear coat is what does that to the color coat.
Yep.
Is it filters out, diffuses, it's the inhibitor of the UV rays. So the thickness is the biggest determinant in how effective it will keep that UV from damaging the color coat, correct?
Yes.
So in order to break that, so if you have to do some paint and body work on a car, or let's just say it's a brand new car from the factory and it has approximately, let's say 3 to 5 mils, which probably is more like 3, maybe 2 to 3 mils.
Of total material, about 3 to 5 mils. Okay. Total material.
So
top coat about 2 mils.
Okay, so 2 mils is really the sunscreen protection for the color coat.
Yep.
At what point did the industry determine that if you go thinner than that, it's going to now delaminate, peel, flake, whatever, and you're just screwed?
And I think they were, all of this is theory at this point, because this is the 90s, cars are delaminating, the minivans are, clears peeling off, the hood's peeling off. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
We never had that happen before. So the theory said that the body shops are to blame. Oh my gosh. The body shops are to blame for that.
Assign blame somewhere, not us. So let's target the body shop.
And then the other theory would be, wait a minute, we're pulling back the amount of VOCs that we're putting into the atmosphere, causing the clear coat to be thinner, causing the UV inhibitors to be less, causing all of this stuff to happen. So it could be that too.
Okay, because my cynical brain would say like, oh, I'm pretty sure I know why they're doing that. It's to save money. Because if we have to spray 2-3 mils, but let's say we can get away with 1 mil, and we're going to spray that, but now we've got a problem because it's delaminating. That would be my cynical brains, like, oh, they tried to cut corners, it bit them in the ass, and now they're going to have to try to fix it. But first, before we fix it, we're going to try to assign blame to the body shops and say, you guys are the problem because you're using compound, you're removing too much material, when in fact, it was actually a VOC because the regulations as far as air quality goes. So VOC stands for volatile organic compounds. So because of regulation, safety, all that stuff, just know if you don't understand what volatile organic compounds are, it's just bad stuff. You don't want to breathe it in. It ruins the environment. So the government comes in and says, okay, we need to regulate this. And now the standard is that you can only have this amount of VOCs present in your product. Mm-hmm. So as a company, you're like, okay, well, it's not about a cost thing. Now it's about how do we meet the demands of the regulations. So if we reduce the amount that we're spraying on it, that means that we're going to reduce our VOC footprint. So now it's about something else, mm-hmm. but it still came and bit them in the butt. Yeah,
and because these were the theories that were being proposed as I was coming out with single product polishing, and these were the hurdles that we were told we would have to overcome. Now, for me in the auto body industry, I just need to get my car done. Yeah. I know that we weren't having a mill removal issue on the high-end restoration shop, the stuff that we were doing.
But is that not because you guys have control of how much thickness?
Do.
And you guys are
cost
spraying.
Cost is no object.
Yeah, so cost is no object. No. You can spray 100 layers of clear if you wanted to.
Whatever we wanted to put on.
Which would allow you plenty of material to work with sanding and polishing, which is different than the OE world.
Yeah, so you've got this give and take in business. One, you're trying to move into a market that we weren't currently in. I mean, it was in the body shop business. But I'm hearing about all these hurdles. Then we got VOC issues and paint peeling off. And I got swirl marks over here because we're using compound. And it's like, guys, I just want to fix the compound issue. Why is this not fixed? Why are all these major companies not helping me in the auto body industry? So as we started to...
When you say major companies, you're talking about the polish and compound companies.
Yes. Yeah.
Not to mention any names, but there's some big names out there. And you're thinking, okay, if you guys are these massive global companies, why are your chemists not formulating a polish or a compound that can fix my problem?
And I'm a body shop guy.
We can send a man to the moon, as the saying goes, but you can't come up with a damn polish or compound that will eliminate this problem for me?
And it's the same basic procedure and the same problems that my dad was having with me that I'm now having with all my employees.
Yeah.
It's like, nobody fixed this.
Yeah.
Why is this not? And not that I had the time to just, okay, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm just going to get into this business. Right. Couldn't do that. Yeah. So it was this give and take thing. I know I wanted the swirl marks fixed because this was crazy that we were having this problem.
Because you've told us before, the standard operating procedure was you compound it, you cut it. You can call it different things. You cut. You polish, and then you glaze over, basically, which is a superficial Band-Aid to cover all the swirl marks that you couldn't remove completely.
Totally
because
fake.
Some company could not come up with a polish or compound that could remove the swirl marks.
Yep, it was totally 100% fake. And I was having to go down that procedure, and then every once in a while, you would get the picky customer who we would have to shut down the whole line, bring this car back in, and normally it's a black car, you know, so you talk to a body shop owner and it's like, hey, how do you like working on black? No, I hate working on black cars.
I don't even want to touch a black car.
Yeah, we only work on white cars here.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to work on black cars because, you know, that's going to be harder. But it wasn't that the white cars had less. You just couldn't see the problem in the white cars.
Right.
The black cars, you could see everything that was fake. And the system, the compound polished glaze system, was totally wrong. It was a nightmare, and it wasn't being addressed. So yeah, that was the whole idea. And as you're being hit with this, bombarded with all of these problems that the OE market had, it's like, man, do I really want to get into this?
Yeah.
But then, you know, slowly, over years of playing and dissecting, we were the very first company to come out with one single product doing everything for the market.
What I want to clarify for my audience, so they can take this information, which is a lot to throw at you guys, and say, okay, now let me help you apply it to your world. So a single product polish. Now, when you broke that barrier, and the reason you want to break that barrier was to show, like, okay, we can remove removable sanding marks, and you started at 2000 grit, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so 2000 grit and finish to a swirl-free finish, and do it by removing the least amount of clear coat that anyone's ever been able to do.
Yep.
Okay. Because once again, if you accept that clear coat is the true UV inhibitor, you want as much clear coat intact as possible. But if you have blemishes and problems with your paint, you accept that you're going to have to put scratches into it in order to polish it, which means you're going to reduce the thickness of that clear coat.
Yep.
So how do you go from sanding mark removal to a swirl-free finish? By removing the least amount of material, which is the good thing. So this is a single product polish. It is not a compound. Once again, compound kills. We want to drive that home to you guys. So this is the cornerstone of your product line. It can go from it can be applied at every type of paint. Ceramic clears, soft clears, hard clears, non-clears. Like this is not a clear-coated paint job, correct?
Acrylic lacquer.
Acrylic lacquer. Original equipment paint. Paint body collision repair.
Plastic, Corian.
I mean, it can
marble.
Work on so many surfaces. So, but what I wanted to clarify for guys is, okay, so you have a single product, which to me is a godsend. It's like, wow. And this is why I call it my dirty little secret. It wasn't available to the public before, because you were attacking the auto body world, which is, that was your pressure point. That was the world you were going after. But I saw, it's like, well, wait a minute. If you can perform at levels that I will never have to perform at, and now I can take this into my world, it's going to make my world that much better, and it's going to alleviate a lot of problems, and it's going to make me more profitable. So I looked at it as just nothing but a win. But yet I couldn't tell people about it because it wasn't available, because you weren't even, the retail detailing market wasn't even on your radar. It wasn't until I came, it's like, hey Tom, by the way, I love this. How come the auto detailing world doesn't know about it? So that's part of my job. So that's the good news is with this, comes in 3 different sizes based on your needs. But what I want to clarify for guys is that we still embrace different polish pads.
Yes.
Because as much as we want to control this, there's still a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving gears. So this is where I want to clarify for the audience, okay, one polish does everything. Sand mark removal, all the way down to swirl-free removal. Now you have choices in buffers. Now your go-to buffer is always a rotary. Detailing world, our go-to buffer is always a dual action because it's just simpler, it's safer in most ways. I'm actually going to do videos and do a comparison and show guys how actually a rotary in a lot of ways is safer because you can control it in ways that you can't control a random dual action buffer. But that's a video for another time. Point is, we have different types of pads. So the base thing is the backing plate, meaning what's going to hold the pad to the buffer. Now this backing plate,
custom
backing plate,
totally custom, very, very firm. What happens?
Just to clarify, this is made for a rotary polisher.
Yes, it is.
It's got the, what is it, 5/8?
16. Yep.
Okay, so that is a standardized spindle fitting that's going to fit virtually any rotary polisher.
Yep.
So this backing plate is made for a rotary polisher.
Yep. So when we were looking at this, we tried lots of different backing plates, but I use a lot of pressure when I'm buffing because I want to get it done.
And I teach. Teach,
get it
Let's
done.
Get in and get it done.
We're not getting paid for this. The insurance company doesn't want to give us money. Get this done as fast as possible. So when you put that kind of pressure on a backing plate, you'll break the backing plate. And I still have guys who break even this backing plate, but they're animals.
That's a lot of pressure.
They're animals. This thing is very, very hard and very, very strong, but because it's 6 inches,
a little flex.
Yeah, and it's, if you know, when we grab,
let's start with this one.
Yeah, we grab the wool. It has the ring, so you set the 6 inch.
This is what I call a direct fitment system. This officially, you could call this a hub centric. Centric just means centered. So this is the hub. So it's a hub centric, which means it's centered around the hub. So rotary polisher spins on a single axis point like this, unlike a dual action. So your goal was to make this as simple as possible in the alignment when you have to put this A pad or any pad on that backing plate.
Yep.
Because any guy that's polished a car knows that you can just consume, and I know it's going to sound so trivial, but if you're trying to center it and it takes you 30 seconds to do it, that's 30 seconds too long.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It really, and guys, like I said, they'll think it's so true. It's like, really, Darren, 30 seconds? Like, trust me, when you're doing this professionally, 30 seconds counts.
Yep. And then the next thing is when you see, this is a 6 inch, so that's what's cool about all of our pads fit on a 6 inch DA too, because they use the same backing plate.
Yeah, I was going to address that next.
The nice thing is, because we're different, most body shop, you know, most companies competing against us use a 7 inch backing plate, then you don't get as much of a roundup. Your pad's not soft on the roundup side. But because we're using...
You know, sorry to interrupt. What's funny is, and enough guys will be watching this, they'll actually, there's guys on YouTube that will tell you how that's a bad thing. Oh my gosh, you have so much flex, and now that's a bad thing. You lose control. It's like, okay, I could show you 100 different ways on any car why I want a certain amount of flex called, in this moment, Roundup, not to be confused with the pesticide.
So this is perfect. This, in my opinion, was the perfect way to do this buffing.
Perfect balance.
Perfect balance. Yeah, it's flat in the middle. It's going to give me a lot of flat pressure for doing all my cutting. But if I want to come up on edge, I've got a really nice roundup there where when that comes up here, I don't have to worry about the paint hitting this. If that's 7 inch, I can drive that into the backing plate and cause a real, especially when you're teaching entry-level guys.
I've never actually done that. I've only heard stories of that happening.
I've done it. I've done it.
I was kidding. It's like, oh my gosh, what just happened?
It's a nightmare. And because sometimes, you know, when you're buffing, you're not paying attention to your edges.
I call it becoming hyper-focused. You're so focused on the paint, and next thing you know, you're like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? So I get that.
Yeah, so
and
the whole thing is just a
detailer will be able to appreciate that.
And it just make it easier. So this really simplified the whole process. All of our pads are standardized with this ring system.
Yeah, so to clarify the ring system, so on this pad, you'll recognize that. That looks like a traditional pad. And by the way, this is a 4-ply, 100% wool pad, which is a quality pad.
Oh yeah, very good.
In case you don't know, that's a quality pad. So on the back, that's where it becomes different. So yes, there's the term that you might be familiar with is Velcro, but Velcro, it's kind of like Kleenex. Kleenex is a brand name of facial tissue. Okay, you can buy Kleenex or facial tissue all day long. So Velcro is a trademarked brand name for what's called a hook and loop system. So you have little hooks and little loops, and so you were very familiar with that. So it clings instantly. The cool thing is you have this very precisely made backing plate that fits into this ring that's literally attached to this pad. So once again, it centers it perfectly for you. So if you've ever put a pad on a buffer and you turn it on, you can instantly tell when it's not centered.
Yeah.
And so you rip it off, you apply it again, you realize, oh, it's not centered again. You do it over and over until you've got it centered good enough.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't good enough. This is like, it's not going to get any more centered than that.
Yeah.
So it has a ring back here. It's a very hard ring. So you literally, you just, you know, you place this at the edge here, you place it like that, and automatically it's centered. So let's clarify the different lineup where we have, so like aggressive, we'll just go from aggressive down to the least aggressive.
Okay, so this is our original wool pad that we came out with, standard wool, 4-ply wool, very, very aggressive, but you know, when you're using it with this product, you have a real nice controlled cut.
Well, there's, yes, perfectly. Controlled here, aggressive here, and this is where I tell guys, it's like, okay, there's a lot of moving parts, and this is where guys can get easily overwhelmed. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so much to learn. It's like, yes, there is a lot to learn. But at every stage of the way, it's like, okay, we've got control here. It's controlled as controlled can be. But this, you're gonna need some aggressive, because if you're sanding a car and now you've got to remove sanding marks from a car, well, you want to do the heavy lifting.
Yep.
That's what I would call the heavy lifting.
Yep.
Would that be a fair statement?
Yep, and that's okay. What the wool pad does. It's very, very fast for a body shop, especially when you're limited on the amount of money that you can spend on this side of the process of, you know, auto body repair.
And by the way, tell me if this sounds correct, but I could take a white car, your polish, and I can remove sanding marks and finish with this single pad on a white car.
Absolutely.
Just FYI, guys.
Yep.
So, but we don't always get to work on white cars. That's why we have other pads.
Yeah.
There's our explanation for the initial cut, the heavy lifting. But with that said, let's switch to this blue pad. So Tom, tell us what is unique about the blue pad.
So
similarities, contrasts.
Cutting ability, exactly the same as the white pad.
So 4-ply wool, 100% wool pad.
100% wool. The nice part about our blue pad is it's pre-washed. So just like blue jeans, they run it through a machine before they sew this whole pad together and wash it so you get less lint.
Yes.
Because I have a lot of body shops who don't want any lint. Now, to some of them, they're okay because wool does cut safer and faster than foam. But if the wool pad, if they're just no way, no wool, then we have a new foam pad for answering that call, which gives us our cutting ability with an actual foam pad.
So to clarify, and this bottle of the D1 polisher is my little placeholder. So these essentially are the same pad. Obviously the color's different. That's so you can visually tell without looking at the back, like, oh, this is the low linting, this is the non-low linting. So same cut, same 4-ply. This has been pre-washed to reduce the amount of linting that gets thrown away as you're actually polishing your car.
Yes.
Because any guy that's ever broken out a brand new wool pad, oh my gosh, lint everywhere. But you just accept it. It blows off very easily. But a low linting, so there was a demand for it. You came up with it. It's pre-washed. So that's the difference between these.
Yep.
You can find all these at your website now.
Right on the website.
CSI Shine.
Or clearcoatsolutions.com.
Okay,
yeah.
so
CSI Shine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but then you started transitioning because some body shops, they don't want to do a wool pad, even though it's more what I would call more efficient, as in able to cut to the chase. They don't want that. They want a foam pad. So then in the lineup becomes this.
Yep. So the same ring.
Okay. But centric, self-centering.
Yep, and it's a European maroon pad. So very, very nice pad. Slow down your speed a little bit, which means it's going to be a little bit slower than this. But the finish...
There's the trade-off.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit slower.
A little bit slower, but no lint at all.
No, I mean, zero lint.
Zero lint.
Yes.
I mean, this really cuts nice. And, you know, as long as you follow these steps, it works very, very well for cutting. So you can take out your sand scratches with the foam pad, and then,
and you can still, because I've used this, and I love it. And I've used those, and I love those. Okay, those are not... I mean, this is unique to me. Yeah. I've never seen a pre-wash low linting. I'm sure they probably exist. Is that a fair statement? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've just never seen one before. Mm-hmm. I've used those, but this, very firm, as in, because you beginners out there, you will get some pads that are so soft, and I get those in my hand, I think, what could this possibly do? I know what the industry will tell you it can do, but just know that this also, you pressure straight down, but you can also still go up on an edge on it. So because there's going to be times where you want additional cutting power, and that's where you're going to want to go up on an edge. Plus you're going to be working with some tight areas, what do you call them in the body shop world? Like the lines on a car, I call it character lines. Is there a standardized term?
Peak lines.
Peak lines?
Yeah, like that quarter panel, the peak line.
A peak line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Peak line.
I just call them character lines.
Definitely a problem around a buffer.
You have to, that's where you have to go into finessing mode. Okay, so that is, and you can, like, if you had to, because I know I could remove 2,000 grit sanding marks with this pad easily. Just not as easily or quickly as that. So everything's got trade-offs, and that's one of my things that people are familiar with. They're like, oh, Darren teaches me like everything's got trade-offs. What I'm trying to teach them is, how can you find that winning balance if no one's educating to you as to what those real trade-offs are? Because I want them to be fully informed so they can say, you know what? That guy wants that set of trade-offs. Well, this is my world. In my world, I want that set of trade-offs. But I can only make that decision if I have all the information. So that's part of what I'm trying to do, is give them enough information when I say, okay, I get it. That's for that. That's for that. This is for this. It's like, okay, I want that. And I want that on this particular job, but on that other job, I want one of those. So, does that make sense?
Yep. And then this one too, is this works with the DA. So
that's another
this is
point.
really, really neat, because now...
Because most DAs will come with a stock 16-inch backing plate.
6-inch, right?
6-inch.
6-inch.
Yeah, what did I say? 16. Yeah, see, my brain and numbers, not a good combination. So a 6-inch backing plate. So this, if you wanted to, you could put on your dual action polisher and use a roll pad if you wanted to. This foam pad, because most auto detailers are using foam pads, very few of them are even using a rotary or a wool pad. So this, even though it's designed specifically for this, you can use it on your stock 6-inch backing plate for your DA polisher.
Perfect. Yeah, it works really, really good.
Which I've tried, and it still works.
It works nice. And then, you know, so then this will give us all these pads, and this pad would be our cutting pads. These 3 pads would be, and these are the only pads that we make for cutting. And this works great to answer the foam pad cutting.
So just to clarify, because, you know, a lot of guys can get bogged up on like, oh, I got to get the right cutting pad. I promise you, on virtually any car, because I know how easily you can become overwhelmed. It's like, oh my gosh, do I have to buy all 4 pads, and where do I start? It's like, okay, if I was an absolute beginner, I would actually have them start with this. You know why?
Very easy.
Because it's going to produce permanent results that are wanted. And I know you can still finish down to what I would call a flawless finish that most people's eyes, they're not developed enough to be able to scrutinize the paint finish when you're done polishing it with the right lighting to be able to even know the difference. So if you can't tell the difference and you just stand back and now you've just spent hours polishing your car and you're like, wow, that stuff is awesome. In my car, like, I'm wetting myself because it looks so good. That would be this pad in my opinion. If you're a beginner, you've got a dual action, 6-inch, and by the way, even if you had a 5-inch backing plate, you could still use this. It would just be a little, you would just spend more time trying to align it. So, but most of your dual action polishers are going to come with a 6-inch backing plate. You put this on, and because one of the complaints I get from guys, in fact, I just shot a video with Sean. He's got a paint correction job lined up. I said, Sean, go with this pad. And I'm going to tell you why. Because one, it's going to produce some actual permanent results. Because the last thing you want to do is come into the equation with a polish that's just going to cover it up. It's going to be like the best user experience you've ever dealt with, because it has this long working time. There's zero dust. It wipes off so easily, but then Johnny customer takes it through a car wash, or he washes it himself, and he calls you up a week later and says, Sean, my car looks exactly the same. What the heck? So you want some permanent good results, but you also want a friendly experience. Yeah. So to me, this is the ultimate winning balance between, for a beginner that doesn't want to get bogged down by all this stuff. I recommend you start with this pad, because it will give you that cut, but you can finish it down to where your customer will be in awe, like, wow, that looks amazing. And I can do it with just this single polish, period.
Yep.
And I can do it in the direct sunlight.
Yep.
So for all you mobile detailers, that is a big winning point. Yeah. And in fact, we just shot a video. We measured the paint temperature before we started,
really?
161 degrees.
All right, nice hot day.
We polished it, direct sunlight, using a dual action, this pad, that polish. We took a measurement, and it got up to 185 degrees. All right. So that's what friction does, is it heats up the surface. Yep. But Sean goes like, wow, that is amazing. I said, right, Sean, see, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so that, in 100,000 words or less, hopefully you understand this pad.
And what makes me happy about that story is I didn't have somebody like you teaching me. I didn't have YouTube either, but I didn't have somebody teaching me. I had a dad who, there's the buffer, there's this, I'm 12 years old. And I go out and I do that, and I burn the car. So I don't ever get the satisfaction that Sean is getting. I get a dad just blowing fuses, because
what are you doing?
The products are horrible.
How come you didn't know how to do it perfectly the first time?
So I'm glad that this process is giving you the ability to show a person like Sean, who's so eager to want to do this.
And I know
he can get great results.
I know there's a lot of guys out there, they want to do this, but they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to begin. So with that said, let's talk about the red pad.
So this is the finest pad that we make. This is called 100 PPI foam. So it's the same as everybody's 100 PPI foam, but we only make one of these foam pads. I don't want to give a bunch of choices. You don't need anything else. You just use this one pad. It's very soft, and this is for doing your final. This works with the DA, and it works with the rotary. So it'll flip-flop between those two things, and you just use this one single product.
So really this, and now I'm speaking from experience, and I'm kind of filling in your words for you. Let's say I've got a black car, and to me, there's nothing more difficult than what I call a solid black car versus a metallic.
Yeah, sure.
Like even a metallic black car, it's like those metallics distract your eye.
Yep.
So when you've got a solid black or a non-metallic black car, that is the ultimate challenge.
Oh, yeah.
So if you can't nail it with this, which I know through my experience I could, because I also accept the limitations of my customers. The customers I'm dealing with are mom and pop, just normal people.
Making it look nice.
Even guys that claim that they are like anal retentive, overly critical. I guarantee I can get in front of one of them and I can produce the results for this, because I know at the end of the day, that even though they talk a good game, they just have an undeveloped eye. They don't know. And they're not going to bust out the LED lights and be like, okay, Darren, let's pull this in my garage, and I'm going to bust out my LED lights, and I'm going to check your work. No, because they're wetting themselves out in the sun as they look at their car. It's like, wow, I can't believe you made my car look that good. It's like, yeah, and I did with one pad, one polish.
Yeah.
But let's say you're in that situation. That's where this pad comes in. and now this is where the industry, once again, they love to hype everything up.
Yeah.
Now it's called jeweling.
Yeah.
We're going to sit there for hours and endlessly jewel the paint to perfection. Okay, this would be your jeweling pad. You could still use this. Of course, you could bump it up to the D1 Polish Enhancer, and that's a video for another time, but really, you can do it with this. So, is there anything else you want to say about that pad?
It's going to, you know, if you're to look at this under a microscope, you're going to have a certain, you know, line that this develops. Not that you can optically see it with your eyes. You would have to.
Okay, I know what you're talking about, but they're not going to understand what that means when you say line. So because we've used that metaphor of an HD TV.
Yep.
It has lines of resolution.
DPI. Yep.
DPI. Well, that actually DPI isn't that dots per inch?
Yeah.
Okay, so that actually has to do with the printing world, which I used to be part of.
Exactly.
So the world of monitors and TV screens, it's lines. Lines of resolution.
4K, 8K.
Yeah. So we went from 790,
1080,
4K. Now it's 4K,
8K,
and now they're talking about 8K,
and
which
OLED,
is like, oh my gosh, like actually it's scary. I see myself on camera. Because this camera, it's pretty high quality, and I see my skin, and it looks so tore up, and I think, something's wrong here, because I swear my skin doesn't look that tore up in real life, but yet on camera, it looks horrid. So that's where the lines, when you reference lines, so this is going to put lines of resolution, and often since we're using that metaphor with TVs, people are going to think just horizontal lines.
Sure.
Obviously this is a circular pattern, so the lines represent what you call scratch pattern. So depth of that scratch pattern, it's all going to be completely uniform.
And then this will tighten that up. So
it will take
pad
these
will tighten up those lines.
1080 lines, and it will produce 4K lines.
Yes.
Would that be a fair comparison?
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely not going to see even these lines really, and these just make it tighter. So then it keeps like bird poop and impurities from sticking to the surface as easily when you've tightened up the surface to this, just using Ceram-X.
Meaning you refine the surface to this level versus that level. Okay.
It's just like
I'd be willing to bet I could take any car, I could dissect it or bisect it, split it in half, finish it with this pad, finish it with that pad, line up 1,000 people, say, okay guys, you tell me which side. Okay, and I'm talking about 1,000 normal people. And I could line up 100 professional detailers, and they would still say, well, I think it's like, okay, if you have to look that closely, I don't need to overthink it at that point. That's kind of the game I play for people. It's like, let's keep this real life. But I get it. There is guys, it's like, no, I want it that level. And I'm that way myself. It's like, I want it that level. Even if no one else can appreciate it, I know I can. So hopefully that clarifies it for you. You can find, like I said, all this online. CSI Shine or clearcoatsolutions.com. Backing plate, pads, and these are just smaller versions for, you know, because now we're getting into the world of smaller pads, smaller backing plates. So if are you currently selling the small backing plates? Okay.
No, we don't have any backing plates. The tools
for this size
already have the backing plate on it, so we just...
Okay, so he has small polished pads if that's part of your world. With that said, let's cut there, and by all means leave us comments. I would like to know just one thing, because we covered a lot of territory. Just one thing that you learned or that was your eyes got opened up to in our conversation. Just one thing. I want you to leave that comment below. And with that said, we'll see you on the next video.